basic stitches for crochet. So as Ash said, there's a lot of things that we are learning today. So we're just going to umbrella it and call it, basic crochet stitches. So that's single crochet, half double crochet, and treble crochet. And we're going to go through how to make each. My name is Renee L. from Yarn Inspirations, and I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that Edie answers them. While we're getting ready to kick things off, let us know where you're watching from, if there's any projects you're excited to start, if this is your first beginner class or your fifth, let us know. I'm gonna pass it over to you, Edie.
Hi, everybody, welcome. It's been a while since I talked. So welcome, we are going to do, doesn't it sound like single versus half double versus double versus treble? It sounds like we're gonna have a smackdown with which stitch is better or something like that. So I'm very long, awkward title. So I like that sort of idea of basic crochet stitches too. But let me make sure that we have proper expectations for this. I can't teach you to crochet in 1 hour. Like if you don't know how to crochet, I'm not going to teach you 4 stitches in an hour. But what I am going to be doing is giving you the basics of each stitch, sort of talking you through them, showing you how they're different. And then in the chat, there are going to be lots of links for places you can go to learn more about each stitch. And you can always watch this recording again. So you can watch this as many times as you need to also. So I'm not really thinking that you're going to be crocheting along with me in real time because we only have an hour or 55 minutes left. So don't think that you're just going to be able to keep up with me, but I will show you things several times. I'll show you the way that I teach the stitches. You may hold the yarn differently. You may hold your hook differently. All of that's fine. So there are many correct ways to crochet. I'm going to show you just the basics, and then you can make it your own with some practice, because this does take practice. So let's go ahead and switch to my hands, and you can hopefully see this overhead view. I am using Bernat Softee Chunky yarn, so a nice number 6 yarn, which is kind of chunky and easy to see or easy to use, and an L hook, and that is what, a 8 millimeter? 9, I can't even read it. You can probably read it yourself. I can't. Is that an 8 millimeter? I'm not sure. L11 hook is what is suggested for this yarn. I'm going to start with a chain, so I'll make a slip knot and put it on my hook. Now, I'm right-handed, so I am going to hold the hook in my right hand. I'm going to hold the yarn in my left hand. If you are left-handed, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to hold the hook in your left hand and the yarn in your right hand. So I like to start in what I call a neutral position, and I'm always going to be coming back to this neutral position. So when I say a neutral position, I mean I'm holding the yarn and I've got the yarn working over my index finger and through my fingers. So I'm tensioning the yarn through my fingers so that I have control over it. I don't even like to use the word tension. Let's call it control. You may like to wrap it around your pinky like this. You may have your own way of holding the yarn, but basically I want the yarn coming over my index finger to the hook. I'm going to use my thumb and my middle finger to hold what's coming off the hook. So right here, I'm pinching this. So I can actually let go if I want to. All right, so to do a chain, and that's not part of the instruction, it's not part of the what the title covers, but we're going to do a chain because we need to start with something. So I'm going to push back on the yarn to create a yarn over, and then pull that yarn over through the loop that was on my hook here and come back up. So push back to create a yarn over, and then rotate that hook down to create another chain. So each time I make that chain, I'm making sure that the loop ends up on the fat part of my hook. It's not staying down here on the throat and the narrow part. It's coming back up here to the fat part. So I'm going to do several chains because after all, that's not what today's class is about, but I just want to get a few stitches in here. So I'm going to stop and count the chains that I've done. The loop on my hook does not count as a stitch, and neither does my slip knot. So everything between counts as a stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chains. Each of these V's, if you look at the front of the chain, looks like the front of the chain looks like a bunch of V's. Now, when I turn, I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain from the hook. Let me draw what this looks like. I'm going to use paper, old-fashioned paper. All right, so your chain looks something like this, and then it has a strand coming out of it that's kind of like this. All right, so I've got this chain, and each chain kind of has 3 parts to it. It's got a top loop, a bottom loop, and then sort of a loop that's coming out the middle of it. So I'm going to insert my hook right under this strand here, or right above that bottom strand. You don't have to worry too much about where you're putting your hook for this because we're not really doing chains, we're really doing the stitches. But I'm going to do a single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook right there above that bottom loop. And when I put my hook in there, I've got 2 loops on top of my hook. Can you see those 2 loops on top and 1 underneath? So I'm going in, yarn over, pull up a loop. I have 2 loops on my hook, then yarn over and pull through 2. That's a single crochet. Let me do that again. Into the next chain. Go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. One more time, go into the chain. This is the hardest part, going into the chain. Yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2. So each of those is a single crochet. I want to show you that the abbreviation for single crochet is SC, which hopefully makes sense. And the symbol for single crochet, if we're doing symbol crochet, is a plus or an X. So you'll see both of those used, either a plus or an X. Okay. So I'm going to do a couple more here to use up my chain. I'm going to go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. One more, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. Oops, I think I have one more chain here. So that last one's a little tight. So when I have finished this row, I'm going to stop and count my stitches. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I started with 7 chains and I ended up with 6 stitches. That's because one of the chains was a turning chain here. Okay, so I have done single crochet. Now, let's talk about what makes up every single crochet stitch. So every single crochet stitch in the world is only made up of 3 steps. Okay, and we've done all 3 steps. The 3 steps are put your hook somewhere, yarn over, and pull your hook out of somewhere. That's it. And it's the way we combine those stitches that, or those motions that make up a crochet stitch. So when I was doing single crochet, I put my hook in, I did a yarn over, I pulled it out, then I did another yarn over and I pulled it out. So let's turn and let me do another row for you. I'm going to turn like I'm turning the page of a book. So like this. Because as a right-hander, I'm always working from right to left. Left-handers are going to work from left to right. So that's, if you're left-handed, you're going to be working in this direction, but I'm right-handed. All right. The other thing we have to do at the beginning of the row is get the hook up high enough to start the next row. So I'm doing single crochet. That requires a chain one because all my stitches are going to be made underneath the hook instead of above the hook. So I have to climb that little ladder to get up here to the top of the row I'm about to make. Now I'm going to ignore that turning chain that I just did. I'm going to ignore that and work into the first single crochet. You see these V's I have across the top of the work? Those are my stitches. So after I've worked my foundation chain, it's a whole lot easier to work into the V's that are at the top of each stitch. So the foundation chain's the hardest part, and then we're going to be just working into the tops of stitches. So that's going to be so much easier. Okay, so now I'm going to do my single crochet. I'm going to go in, yarn over, and pull up a loop through the fabric. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. And always come back to that neutral position. So each time I'm coming back to this neutral position. So I'm going to go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. I'm going to do that all the way across, working into each of these V's. Now I know I'm going too fast if you're trying to go along with me. Remember I said at the beginning, I'm not expecting you to be able to work along with me because we only have an hour. So I'm going to go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Last stitch here, go into there, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. It's a good idea at the end of every single row to stop and count your stitches because it's really easy to get messed up and lose track of how many stitches you have. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I still have 6 stitches. Okay, so I want to move on because I want to make sure I get each of the stitches described. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about the end of rows and keeping your work straight. So it's important to understand those 3 things. Let me do one more row. We're going to do a turn and chain 1 because it takes 1 chain on a single crochet to get my hook up to the big level of the next row. So see if you can catch me out doing a motion that's not one of those three things I talked about. I'm going to go in, yarn over, and pull it out. Then yarn over and pull it out. Go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's the single crochet. Let me move on across to finish the row, and then I'm going to move on to half double crochet. So I finished my single crochet row. I'm going to flip it, turn it, and this time I'm going to chain 2 because a half double crochet is taller than a single crochet. So I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2. For now, I'm going to ignore that turning chain. I'm just going to pretend it's not there, and I'm going to do a half double crochet. So a half double crochet starts a little bit differently in that I'm going to do a yarn over first. So I start with a yarn over. Then I'm going to put my hook into that stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So now I have 3 loops on my hook instead of 2. Remember when I was doing single crochet, I had 2 loops, but I started with an extra loop on my hook. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. Let me do that again. Begin with a yarn over. Go into the next stitch, and I'm working under 2 loops here. Yarn over, pull up a loop. I have 3 loops. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And when I pull through all 3, I don't try to do it super fast. I'm not trying to go fast. I can pull through one at a time if I want to. So here we go. Yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 3. So watch me just go through 1, then 2, then 3. If you try to go too fast, you may get your hook caught, and you don't want that to happen. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 1, 2, 3 stitches. Can you see that this stitch is a little bit taller than the single crochet? Because we're adding this extra step in here. Yarn over. Now I have 3, then yarn over and pull through all 3. One more time. I still want to have 6 stitches when I finish this row. Yarn over, pull through all 3. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half double crochets. Half double crochet is abbreviated HDC, and the symbol for half double crochet is kind of like a capital T. All right. Now, let me move on to double crochet, because I want to show you all 3, and then we're going to talk about some of those differences. So
Can I just pop in real quick?
Absolutely.
So Elaine had asked, does it matter if you chain and then turn your work versus turn and chain?
It does not matter. Good question.
Okay,
so,
and then one more. Sorry, before you go.
That's okay.
How do we know when to ignore the turning chain versus counting the turning chain as a stitch?
Right. That is a really good question, which I'm there. Can you hear me now?
I just muted you. Oh, you're good. You're good. I tried to mute myself and muted Edie.
Okay,
Sorry, guys.
How did I get muted? I will absolutely talk about turning chains in just a minute. So if whoever asked that question can hang on for just another second, let me get through the double crochets, and then I'm going to talk a lot about turning chains. Okay,
we'll get there. Thank you, Edie.
Sorry. Asking those questions, but that's a really good one. I want to explain something else first.
Perfect.
Okay, so I've done the half double, and I'm going to skip to half double. I'm going to do double next. So for my turning chain, I'm going to turn and chain 3. And for right now, 2, 3, I'm going to ignore this. I am not going to treat this chain 3 as a stitch. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm going to ignore those 3 chains, and now I'm going to do a double crochet. Double crochet starts with a yarn over, just like half double did. Then I'm going to go into the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. So far, we are at the same place we were when we did a half double. But here is where it's different. I'm going to yarn over and pull through just 2 loops. 1, 2. I end up with 2 loops on my hook, then yarn over and pull through 2 more. Okay, so let's try that again. Yarn over, go in, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I have 3. Then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And if you look, now that stitch is getting even taller. Can you see that it's much taller than the last one, which was taller than the one before it? That's why we needed 3 chains to climb up the ladder. So I'm going to finish this, yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. This time I'm going to talk about yarn overs. I want to make sure when I'm doing a yarn over that I'm going to push back so that my yarn over is going as a right-hander from the upper right to the lower left. It needs to be going in this direction. If you're left-handed, it's going to be going in the other direction. So you want to make sure you're not doing a yarn under, you're doing a yarn over. So I'm going to go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'm going to do, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to do 2 more double crochets. And I'm going to put the last one right here. All right, so I know that was fast on the double crochets, but so far we have single, half double, and double. And I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus my turning chain. Now, turning chains are the things that really confuse people. I'm going to first tell you that the abbreviation for double crochet is DC. And the symbol for double crochet looks kind of like a T with a little hash mark on it. Okay. So if I am, I'm going to use some symbols to help you see this. When I'm doing these double crochets, I think I had 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double crochets. And I also had a chain 3 turning chain. So I had my 3 chains and then I had my 6 double crochets. When I turn to work in the other direction, if I'm not using my turning chain as a stitch, my chain 3 does not count as a stitch. I'm going to draw it like this, and I'm going to work each of these double crochets into a double crochet, and then I'm going to ignore that chain 3. So what I like to do for this is put a marker. All right, remember my chain 3 is not counting as a stitch for this particular project. So I'm going to put a marker in my double crochet and then in my last double crochet over here too. So I can really see those. All right, so I'm going to turn and chain 3, which right now is not counting as a stitch. Now I know because I have that marker in that stitch, that is where I'm going to put my first stitch. So I'm going to do a yarn over, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then I'm going to stop and move my marker, oops, to the top of that stitch that I just made, because I want to be able to find that stitch later on. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. I'm going to do some more double crochets. Yep, I know I'm going too fast on this, but I want to get to the end of the row so I can show you what to do. Whoops. If you go too fast, you lose your stitches and your yarn gets tangled, all that stuff happens. So because I left a marker at the first stitch when I did the previous row, I've got a marker hanging out here showing me where the last stitch goes. So here I am, the next to the last stitch. And here's that marker going, hey, 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 put a stitch right here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a stitch right here. And I'm going to stop and count and make sure that I still have 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus my turning chain, which does not count as a stitch for now. Now, let me move this marker to my first stitch. Oops. That's the last stitch I did right there. So if I keep working back and forth, and don't count the turning chain, I'm going to get a little bit of a scalloped edge because the turning chain is kind of hanging off the end. It's not bad, but that's a look that you're going to get. Now, what if I want to count the turning chain as a stitch? So you've seen patterns that say chain 3 counts as double crochet. I might decide I want to use my turning chain as a stitch. In that case, I'm changing colors here so you can see what I'm doing. That chain 3 is going to take the place of the stitch. So when I turn and chain 3, or chain 3 and turn, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that chain 3 right there is a stitch. So if I put a stitch right there where I marked, this last stitch, if I put a stitch there, then I would be increasing. I don't want to increase. I'm going to skip that stitch, skip the stitch that's at the base of the chain 3, and work my double crochet into the next stitch. Now, understanding about turning chains is the thing that's going to save you when it comes time to trying to get your edges straight. So knowing where to put the first stitch of your row and understanding turning chains is crucial. I'm going to put my marker not in this double crochet, but in that top of the chain 3, because why? Because that chain 3 is now a stitch, because I decided that I wanted to use the chain 3 as a stitch. I have a blog post, and maybe Renee, you can find that. It's called Where to Put the First Stitch of a Crochet Row, that explains this. So that might be a helpful resource for people to have. I didn't think about that. I would have given it to you earlier.
No worries. Sorry, what was the title again?
Where to Put the First Stitch of a Crochet Row. It's on edieckman.com.
You got it. I will find it.
Thank you. So here I have done my first stitch, but I also have my chain 3. So that's actually 2 stitches. I'm going to work in each of these stitches across, because the middle part of the row is the easy part, where I'm working under both loops of the stitch. And when I come across, now before, when I put my marker here before, I was not counting the chain 3 as a turning chain. So that as a stitch. So that marker's in the wrong place. I'm going to work into the last double crochet. But hey, now remember I've said, oh, I want to use my chain 3 as a stitch. That means when I come back across, I have to work into the top of the chain. And all these other stitches looked really nice and easy. They had a nice V shape to the top of them. They were pretty easy to find. But here's the thing. If you're trying to work into a chain, you've got to dig into the chain. You're going to have to kind of work your way into the chain. Don't work into this space. Don't put your hook right in there. You're going to have to work into the chain itself. So sometimes that's a little bit harder. We're doing that double crochet. Now, when I stop and count, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches. That's because I added a stitch on the end here because I changed the way I treated that last stitch. So all of a sudden I'm at 7 stitches because I went like this. I substituted a chain 3 for a stitch, but then I came across here and I ended up working into the top of the chain. So that ended up adding a stitch. But now when I work back and forth, I won't be adding any more stitches because I'll be working into the top of the chain, and then I won't be working into that stitch again. This is a challenging thing to understand, but I wanted to introduce the concept to you because I think beginners or just beyond beginners really don't understand about turning chains, and a lot of more advanced crocheters don't understand about turning chains. And to me, it's the key thing that will help you be the boss of your crochet, is to understand turning chains and how they work. Now, the question, and Ash, could you put it back on me for a minute? The question about when to count as a turning chain or not count as a turning chain. You can decide, or you can follow your pattern. Okay, so the pattern might say chain 3 counts as double crochet. And in that case, you're going to do the second thing I showed you, which is you're going to chain 3 and say, oh, that magically became a double crochet. I'm going to skip the stitch at the base of that chain 3 and work into the next stitch, because you're smart and you know that when it morphed into a double crochet, you don't want to increase, so you're going to work into the next stitch. If the chain 3 doesn't count as a double crochet, then you are going to work right into the stitch that's at the base of that chain. The pattern should tell you if it counts as a stitch or doesn't count as a stitch. So look for that information if you're following a published pattern. If you're making up something on your own, you get to decide whether you want to use it or not use it. There are pros and cons both ways. One is not better than the other. One is not right. One is not wrong. It's up to you. As long as you understand what's going on with the first stitch and the last stitch of your row, you'll be fine. So whoever asked that, let me give you a minute to speak up and see if that answered your question sufficiently about does it count or does it not count. And I'll let Renee check in, and I'm going to take a drink.
Well deserved. Awesome. So we'll give them a little bit of time to see if that answered it. Oh, we have one new message here. Kathy says yes.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
All right. So let me move on to treble crochet, because we don't want to forget we're doing single, half double, double, and treble, right? Versus, whatever that means. Okay. So this time, a treble crochet is even taller. So I'm going to turn. I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my goodness. Look at how tall that stitch is. This time, I'm going to yarn over twice. So 1, 2 times. And I need to hang on to those loops because now I'm going to go down. I'm going to say that's a stitch. I'm going to call that chain 4, a treble crochet. So I'm going to skip this stitch, work into the next one. I'm going to go in, yarn over, and pull up a loop. I have 4 loops on my hook. 4. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. You're just yarning over and pulling through 2 till you get back to 1 loop. Okay, let's do that again. Yarn over twice. Go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. I've got 4 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 once. Yarn over, pull through 2 twice. Yarn over, pull through 2 3 times. And look at how tall those stitches get. They also get a little bit loose, like there's more space between them. So it just starts looking pretty different when you get up here to these really tall stitches. So let me do that again. Yarn over 2 times. Go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 once, yarn over, pull through 2 twice, yarn over, pull through 2 3 times. So do that all the way across. I'm going to do these a little bit faster. And because I'm counting my my chain 4 as a stitch, this time it's a treble, I've worked into each of the easy stitches, each of the V's, but now I have to work into that chain. It's going to be easier if I take my marker out. It's hard to get this little marker out of this chunky yarn. Not a good choice. All right, yarn over twice. And I'm going to go into the chain itself. So I'm digging into the chain. So I'm right there. I've got 2 loops on top and 1 loop on the bottom. And it can be kind of hard. There I am. I'm going to do my last stitch. It's going to take me 3 tries to get everything off my hook. That's why it's called a treble crochet. There I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches, which is what I wanted to have. So you have single, half double, double, and treble. Let me show you what those abbreviations are, and then we're going to talk about what happens if we were in London. Okay, so treble is TR, and the symbol for treble is like a double, except it has 2 hash marks on it, standing for those 2 yarn overs. Now, I'm in Virginia, which is in the United States of America. Some of you may be in Canada, but we're all in, well, I don't know, some of you may be in other countries too, but I want to talk about the difference between the US and the UK terminology. What in the US, what we call a single crochet. In England, they're going to call it a double crochet. Now they're going to do it the same way we do it, but they call it a double crochet. Half double is called a half treble. What we call a double, they call a treble. And what we call a treble, they call a double treble. Can you see it's 1 step off from what we are used to calling it? So it's not that it's done any differently. It's just that it is called something different. So if you are following a pattern that was published in the UK, it probably, and it says to double crochet, you probably want to do this. Go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2, which is what I call a single crochet. So have you ever seen patterns that say this pattern uses American crochet terminology?
Oh, okay. I think we're back on.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, and go ahead. I was going to show something else about the turning chain, but.
Oh, no, I think you're good. I was just going to say, so Virginia said to reiterate, you were going under the V and not into one side of the V.
Correct. So let me change cameras here. All right. So the default position for putting your hook in is under both loops of the V. There is something called front loop only and something called back loop only, but unless it says otherwise, you are always working under both loops of the V. So that is the default thing that you do. And you don't even have to question it. That's just what you do, unless it says front loop only or back loop only. All right. So there's not always one way to do it, but there is the way you're expected to do it unless the pattern says otherwise. Okay. Any other questions?
I think we're good to proceed. I'm going to take a look at the chat, but okay. Yeah.
So I just want to encourage everybody, rather, if you are not keeping your edges straight, if you are having problems with that, don't practice on a baby blanket, because that is really too many stitches to practice on, because you don't want to stop and count 150 stitches. You're going to lose track of where you are. Practice on a swatch like I've been doing, where you have 6 stitches, and concentrate on saying, this is the thing I want to learn. I want to understand about the first and last stitch of a row. Work back and forth on this little skinny thing where you can easily count 5 or 6 stitches and in each stitch. So in single, half double, double, and treble, until you get it. And when you get it, like when it clicks in your mind, you won't have you'll get it, right? Remember when you learned to ride a bicycle and it was hard, and then you got it, right? That doesn't mean you won't make mistakes, because I still make mistakes. I still lose stitches sometimes, but at least I know what's going on and I know why it's going on. So it's not just like this, I don't know what's happening. It's just like messed up. I know what's happening. I know where I made a mistake. I can recognize my mistake and I can go back and fudge it or fix it or whatever I want to do, but I don't have to, I'm not clueless about why it happened. Okay. So just practice on a little piece to start with. Okay. That's me. So we had the single, we covered single, half double, double, and treble. A little bit about each one. There's a lot more to learn. I have a lot more to say about everything, because I can talk for an hour without much trouble at all. But please visit me. I have a YouTube channel. I have a website. I teach classes virtually all the time. I'm teaching a class tomorrow night on how to teach knitting and crochet. So I just hope you will join me on social media, on Facebook. I am Edie Eckman everywhere, edieeckman.com, Edie Eckman on Facebook, Edie Eckman on Instagram, Edie Eckman on YouTube. So there's only one of me and I'm everywhere. So.
That is wonderful. That is poetry. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. Don't forget to share your work with #MakeItWithMichaels and #YarnSpo. Just a reminder, you can find more classes on michaels.com and a recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. And that's all good. Thanks everyone.
All right, good night.
Bye.